action fans, and thanks for joining us for another edition of All 90s Action All the Time, as we continue our journey through the 90s career of Steven Seagal. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Murphy, and joining me to dissect this latest film, as always, we have podcaster, screenwriter, and a man who turned up slightly late to this podcast recording as he was just back from his latest CIA mission, Mr. Kyle Hint.
I am not trained for this.
None of us are. We are also joined by our newest host, another podcaster, screenwriter, and someone who just last week was a Seagal white belt, but is now learning the Seagal way, Mr. Craig Drime.
I have my notes on them, and I think, I have all my rules.
You've got the list nailed down now. Yeah, okay, cool. Anyway, we better get to today's movie, which is Under Siege 2, Dark Territory, which was released in 1995 and seems like a film that Seagal was made to do by Warner Brothers after the box office disappointment that was On Deadly Ground. The film was directed by Jeff Murphy, a New Zealand director who broke out with films like Utu and The Quiet Earth in the 80s, both of which are supposed to be very good. The Quiet Earth's like a kind of post-apocalyptic sci-fi, and Utu is a Maori Western, and they're both critically acclaimed. But then to pay off tax debts in the 90s, he went to Hollywood and made a bunch of movies, including Young Guns 2, Free Jack, and this one. Although he subsequently, in the 2000s, went back to New Zealand and was the second unit director on all three of the Lord of the Rings films. So there you go. The film was also written by Richard Hatem and Matt Reeves. Richard Hatem went on to write the rubbish Richard Gere horror movie, The Mothman Prophecies. But then subsequently has gone on to have a successful career in TV. He's written for various shows like Supernatural, Grimm. He's currently writing for Titans. He's done a bunch of stuff. And his fellow screenwriter on the project was one of the earliest screenplays by Matt Reeves. Yes, that Matt Reeves, the one who directed Cloverfield, and he directed both Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes, and is currently filming The Batman. So there you go. That's it's one of his very first screenplays. Doing some script rewrites was Brian Hegeland, who wrote LA Confidential. He was the one who took the script from Matt and Richard and turned it into an Under Siege film, because their original script was just basically a Die Hard clone, and it was retrofitted to be an Under Siege sequel. And we will actually cover more of Mr. Hegeland's writings, because he also wrote the likes of Payback, Conspiracy Theory, and Assassins, I believe. More of his work will come up throughout the progress. In terms of scores for the film currently holds a 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb, 34% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 32 reviews. That seems a bit harsh. And 52% on Metacritic based on 21 reviews. That seems better. And 2.5 on Letterboxd. Although I should say that both Siskel and Ebert gave it a thumbs up. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that when I looked that up, but on Rotten Tomatoes, positive review from both Siskel and Ebert. There you go.
Ebert, I can never put my finger on, because sometimes he, like with horror movies, he's normally always negative. He was negative a lot of the time, but then action movies, he'll give these weird passes to, and then certain comedy types he just would really bash on, and I don't know.
He could be weird about things. Yeah, he was. I mean, certainly in terms of horror, which obviously we're all big fans of here, as our other podcasts cover horror. He was often like just dead wrong. I mean, he's often pointed out as like one of the many critics who hated On the Thing, which is obviously one of the greatest films ever made.
Exactly.
Anyway, I suppose we should talk about not one of the greatest films ever made. We should talk about Under Siege 2. So this film does get you excited from the get-go because it opens with just the first bars of a great score from Basil Polidaris, who is probably most famous for his works with Paul Verhoeven. He did the scores for like RoboCop and Starship Troopers. He also did the score for Conan the Barbarian. So this guy can make an epic score, and he makes an epic score here. And we get the opening, which is his score over a space shuttle launching and a satellite. So it's pretty good opening shot. Nice sci-fi opening shot.
Yeah, I did write in here because our last episode, it was an eagle, and that maybe a space shuttle blasting off trumps an eagle flying because it's the ultimate patriotic thing.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, but it's not as funny though. Like,
no.
I mean, it's not quite as entertaining as that eagle shot with the classic eagle caw sound, which is heard throughout on Deadly Ground to increasingly comic effect. But we've talked about that film, so we've got to move on.
In general, this one for me it's not as, because last episode I talked a lot about openly comedic, thinking that, okay, this has to be a joke, where this one, and it wasn't, that's what was confirmed by both of you, but this was definitely one that I was like, okay, so it's not a joke at all. It wasn't as outwardly comedic, I think, as the other one that I was here for.
I think for me, I felt like you did with On Deadly Ground, Craig. To me, this was very outwardly comedic.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
I think it's the way certain of the actors play their roles, which I think we'll get into more.
Yeah.
But I think obviously some of the actors probably were not taking the material entirely seriously, probably entirely correctly. But yeah. Maybe
like how can you take it seriously?
I mean, some of the lines of dialogue, who knows? Who knows if you can take it serious? As always with Seagal films, I did in the kind of background research before we really get into the plot. He obviously, as always, seems to get into fights with the director and Jeff Murphy. Apparently not very proud of this movie, or pretty much any of his Hollywood output. He seems like quite snippy about, and butted heads with Seagal a bunch, and Seagal being one of the producers, got his own way on certain things, and obviously while he is also uncredited, obviously Seagal, as always, throws his own lines in, of which we don't know which ones are which, but he definitely throws his own lines in.
Okay. Well, I mean, I will say, because we were talking about it before, that like, how do they get all these actors, or even these directors that had a nice career beforehand with Seagal? And it reminded me of when Seinfeld, when he won the Emmy, I think, for Seinfeld or something, where he talks about that he wasn't, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but he didn't consider himself a great actor in the least bit. But if you surround yourself really solid talent, then it makes you look better. And so I feel like this is kind of the approach for this movie. Like, there's certain elements where I'm just like, these people are actually really good, that like they, even in their joking element, or not going fully the way like it's probably intended element, like they're doing it in an elevated way above what this movie probably is.
Yeah, that's a fair point for sure. I think, I mean, like, it has like a decent cast, and like a lot of Seagal films from this period, have a decent cast. We discussed that in the last episode with Michael Caine, but he's done a bunch of movies for paychecks, but like, and there was other actors in that movie, and like Keith David was like on Marked for Death, and there's good actors in most of these movies. And then we had the villain combo of Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey in the first Under Siege. So he pulls in like pretty decent actors.
They all have mortgages to pay.
They all have mortgages. And to be fair, it does seem very much that, like, most of Jeff Murphy's, the director's Hollywood career was based on that, of just, he had like a large New Zealand tax bill that he had to pay, and then that's how he made Young Guns 2 and the Emilio Estevez starring sci-fi action Free Jack and this movie.
I will go to bat for Young Guns 2. I can't defend Free Jack though.
That's where you draw the line. Free Jack can go fuck itself. Fair enough. Well, actually there's enough movies at some point we could do like an Estevez Sheen season. But that's much further down the track, let's not think about that right now. We've not started this movie, I've just realized. So after the space shuttle opening, that's all you know about this film so far, guys. We're sorry. We cut to the headquarters at ATAC, which is like a kind of secret government facility, which is run by Kurtwood Smith, playing the character of Major General Stanley Cooper. Kurtwood Smith, who you probably know either for being the dad in That 70s Show or the villain in RoboCop, or you might know him for both.
I know him from both. Yeah.
Me too.
Cool. That's the only roles anybody will know him from, though, because that's just you know him from these two things, and I mean I'm sure he has turned up in other things. I've definitely seen him in other things as well. But there's a lot of known faces in this movie that we'll get to, and alongside Major General Stanley Cooper is our good old friend Tom Breaker. So some shady shit's going on. And we saw the launch of the satellite, and they're messing about with this new military satellite, what they've got. And what do they do with this new major piece of technology, Kyle?
One of the guys spies on like a topless woman on the beach in a complete non sequitur within this scene.
Yeah, so it's basically like a Google Maps in a way, but also well, that's what it feels like at first, is that they can zoom in on all these.
Oh yeah. It's like a super high technology Google Earth.
Yeah, but I think that's like, I don't know, maybe it says something to the tech industry, how it would have went regardless, because that's probably more accurate. But it's like you have all this tech, everything, and then it just zooms in on a nude woman on the beach, and they just talk about that for a while. But then they're so excited, there's the kind of perverted guy about it, but then everybody else is like, "Yeah, it works finally."
Yeah, no, nobody mentions it apart from Captain Trilling. There is one guy who's like, "That's kind of creepy. Would you stop that?" And everybody else is just like, "Well, this has been a great success. Totally works. Excellent. Let's move on with our day."
Yeah, but they have to make sure that she turns around too, and they can, declutter the screen or clear up the image. That's how they know it really works, when they can see her actually topless. Clear, yep. Crystal clear, and 4K, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, definitely 4K.
Absolutely. And like you say, nobody else seems to care. This is creepy behavior. Kurtwood Smith is just very happy that this new piece of technology works as advertised.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we find out about our soon to be introduced villain. Is it Travis Dane?
Travis Dane.
Yes. Who created the technology and who's crazy. He drove his car into a lake. Or whatever.
Died from suicide. Wink, wink.
Yes.
They never found the body, that's not suspicious. He left a mysterious note that says, "Chance favors the prepared mind." And, but yeah, that's just a weird aside, isn't it? But, well, I'm sure this will never be mentioned again.
No,
because then there's the two captains, and you need two codes that change constantly, but they have to put them in simultaneously in order to get the machine to work. Again, it won't pop up later.
No,
not important.
Not important information. This is not a Chekhov's gun style thing. You can just ignore it. And then we get a little scene where, just to really rub it in their faces that Breaker's a dick, he sleazes on to the one woman that ATAC seems to employ, a Captain Gilder. And he gets knocked back. She has other plans. Again, we don't find out these other plans. It's just something you can just ignore.
Which it turns out later, he calls his wife, and that he has a wife and kids too. They really want you to know that Breaker is an asshole. He is the classic CIA asshole who's just doing devious shit, whether it's in his personal life or his professional life. Breaker is just the king of assholes. Next.
Yes, next. Once we're out of that scene, we get a classic Seagal intro, because as we established in the last episode for Craig, we always have to know how cool Steven Seagal is at any point. How cool, how manly, how multi-talented. So we get this scene where Casey Ryback is driven in a car, parks up in the car. He now owns a restaurant. He's obviously quit the Navy, but he now owns a restaurant. The chef at the restaurant is pulling out his hair, saying Ryback's late, and it turns out that Ryback, he casually says, have you been on one of those super secret missions again? And Ryback salutes his driver, which means yes he has. What was this Ryback adventure? It can only exist in our imaginations. What could he possibly have done? Anyway, we get this adventure. So we'll never know what happened between part 1 and part 2. We'll never get Under Siege 1.5 where we find out what his other mission was in the in-between time.
He got dropped in the Arctic Circle with right. That line was from Deadly Ground.
It all ties together.
Yeah.
It actually does all tie together, because there is a connective tissue to On Deadly Ground that we will talk about later. And then, we just get more kind of what a great guy Casey Ryback is. The restaurant's just not the same without him. The customers ask for him personally, which I saw as that kind of situation where it's when a boxer or a footballer retires and opens a bar, and they just spend their time telling stories of back in the day. And he just regales his customers with his adventures, and that's why everybody wants Casey. And also his cooking is amazing. Everybody is always very impressed by his cooking. I mean, in the first movie, the captain of the ship, Casey was literally the only person that the captain would let cook for him. Otherwise, it just wasn't good enough.
But that, I will say, so as part of the rules of what will pop up in a Seagal movie. See, and one of them is that people will talk about how great he is, and they'll, later on they talk more in detail about how amazing he is. But this one seems like, as we mentioned before recording, is just such a weird flex for an action movie. It's just, he's so cool about cooking. It's about a restaurant. And it just seems, okay, why are you... I don't know. It seems,
cooking's very important to Seagal.
Yeah. Somebody's overcompensating for something.
Always.
Yep. It is, again, it's just the Seagal way. So we could talk about it for hours, but we got to truck on with this movie. So let's go, Craig. What's up next?
So he fight her. So his brother has died on a plane crash, and he's going to be taking a train to California, because why would he want to fly in a plane if his brother died on a plane crash? But he has to take his niece, who he hasn't seen in, I believe they mentioned, about 10 years, and it's
I think it's 5 years.
Well, they haven't talked in 5.
So they haven't talked in 5. And he's going to be taking her. And because she's the only family they have to see pretty much the gravesite of his brother, who did.
He missed the funeral for some reason, which isn't explained, or because he was on that mission, I guess.
Yeah,
possibly.
And she missed the funeral too, kind of, or something. I don't know.
No, she's. Well, I don't know. I think she was
No, it's implied. It's implied that she actually arranges the whole funeral.
Mm-hmm.
In the scene coming up at the train station.
Yeah, and that's when they go to the train, and he's just looking for her and can't seem to find her because he doesn't recognize her because she's grown up.
And he's looking kind of creepily at all the young women that are probably around 16 or something.
Yeah. And most of them that he is looking at would not, like, they don't look anything like the child in the photo that it shows. That's the thing.
Well, even Katherine Heigl doesn't really look like whoever that other picture is.
Yeah,
that is true.
And then she comes up to him as he goes to ask if somebody already collected the ticket, and she walks up to him, and obviously she's the disgruntled teenager, and they get ready to go on the train.
Her dad did just die.
Yeah.
And with no emotion at all, she says, I've been dealing with arranging funerals.
That's no excuse for her attitude.
Yeah, because he kind of like casually says, like, what have you been up to? And she's like, oh yeah, you're just, like dealing with plane crashes, arranging funerals and stuff. Just walks away, and putting her headphones back on.
Seagal's reaction to that is like some of his best acting again, too, where he just says, yeah. Wow, great consolation there, bud.
He really stretches his acting muscle in a minute. But
I will say, he, for at least this little opening bit, compared to what was last week, he at least seems like he's trying to appear as somebody that's upset. It doesn't work. But...
No, he does. Yeah. He tries to force emotion out, much like in the first Under Siege when he finds the captain who was like his best mate dead, where he tries to force emotion out of his face and fails. He does something very similar here.
Yeah.
But we get our, just after this, we get our first glimpse of a bad guy. And how do we know it's the bad guy? Well, there's a guy standing at this train, smoking a cigarette, looking rather shifty, and played by Peter Green. Peter Green, who you may know as Zed from Pulp Fiction, or the bad guy from The Mask. He had a very solid 1994, I tell you.
Yeah.
But you know when you see Peter Green in a film, bad shit's going on.
Goddamn right.
They actually had this whole movie. They had the go-to, goon. Henchmen of the 90s. There's a ton of
them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's absolutely filled out with all the kind of faces that you recognize from every other 90s action movie.
And it plays into the trope we've mentioned where it's like got those couple second string henchmen who look pretty tough, who mostly die in very anticlimactic ways.
That is true. They obviously really didn't care much about the characters, to be fair. I mean, literally, because I double checked, I looked this up. Literally, Peter Green's character is mercenary number 1.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw that in the credits and I was like, oh man, they didn't even give him a name. What the hell?
He even had a bunch of lines too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's like the Colin Meaney of this movie. Because he seems to be like kind of third in command. But like Colin Meaney I can't remember his character name now, but like he got a character name.
Yeah, it's not fair.
So after this, we see is this when we come across the two captains to see that they're on the same train?
Yeah, that is correct. Captain Trilling, who was the guy who was very upset with the creepy behavior, quite rightly, and and Captain Gilder, who was sleazed upon by Breaker. It turns out this was the date she was talking about.
Champagne on a train.
Yep. And he has to wait for the special moment, but...
Well, he doesn't have to wait that long.
Yeah, which is like 1 second. Yeah.
You have to wait. Oh, you've waited. Okay. Yeah. And then, guys.
Oh, yes.
We get the introduction of everybody's favorite character, Bobby Zax, played by Morris Chestnut. And he's going to be our comic relief from the film. And God, how we all wish he was not.
Yes.
And his whole opening is him hitting on Katherine Heigl.
Which is made twice as awkward by the fact that at the time of filming, Morris Chestnut 25. Katherine Heigl, 16. And it looks every bit as icky as that sounds.
Yeah, that was my, big note we talked about beforehand of just how old is he? How old is she? Because obviously he talks about money or he's doing this job so he can pay for college. But yeah, there's no way that she's 18 or older. And, just even the way they set it up, they don't necessarily give her age, but it's clear that she's underage.
Yes. And it's just so awkward. So the scene plays out where he looks directly at her chest, and she's wearing a medal that her father won, a naval medal, and he kind of just goes, "Nice medal you got there," and it's just ugh.
Yeah,
it's pretty sleaze-tastic.
And he follows her for a long time, saying he has to carry her bag or he's going to get in trouble. But there's all the other people entering the train.
I know, all the other passengers he doesn't give a fuck about. Apparently, he knows the Rybacks are special.
Well, there's moments where he's good at his job and he's holding on to the rules because he doesn't want to get in trouble. But then, ultimately, he's very bad at the job as a porter.
Yeah.
Not a busboy.
As a porter, yeah, we should definitely clarify that.
Underline that
because he gets very annoyed about it.
Yeah.
But this is the point actually where we get the introduction of the character of Penn, played by Everett McGill, who you'll definitely most know for as Big Ed in Twin Peaks. Or maybe you possibly know him from People Under the Stairs, or both.
Yes.
Or Silver Bullet. He's amazing in that, actually, as the Reverend.
All right, yeah. Okay. So it's not the one that I immediately think of, but yeah, okay.
He's good in anything. And that's what I think he's one of those characters, especially when you watch this. And we'll get into it more, that you're like, man, you are in a whole nother ballpark in this role.
Yes, he is.
You are so good in this, and you're just working with whatever the rest of this movie is.
Yeah. But we also get the mercenaries. We get a look at some of the other mercenaries, and the first one you see has a great mullet. I just thought I'd bring that up just because it entertained me.
There's a lot. There's the guy from I lost his name. I think he was on Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul now.
Oh, Jonathan Banks. Again, kind of classic henchman material. Yeah. He actually gets a name. He's Scotty. Yeah.
We also get, I can't think of the guy's name he was the villain. I remember him as the villain in Death Warrant with Van Damme, the guy who wears the Paperboy's cap.
Yeah, he's Patrick Kirkpatrick.
Yes.
And he plays mercenary number 2.
Yeah, he plays a great mercenary.
Yeah. He does indeed. But again, didn't bother giving him a name.
And he's kind of fourth in command or something. He gets a good death.
They do seem to be the central core group, along with the female mercenary, who in the credits is listed as female mercenary, but in Wikipedia is yes. But in Wikipedia, she's given a name Fatima, and I don't know where that came from, because on the credits on the DVD I had, she's just listed as the female mercenary.
Yeah, weird.
Well, and she's one of those where what Kyle was mentioning before, where they set her up like she's going to be this really badass character, and then she's just kind of pops in and out occasionally and is barely utilized at all. But she's there. And
to be fair, she's gone up in the world, because that actress, Afifi, the last time we saw her in a Seagal movie, she was a go-go dancer in Out for Justice. So her bark's been beefed up.
Oh, so after this, we get to, when we get the connection between.
Oh yes, I've put in my notes here. I've put responsible uncling stroke Seagal's erotic energy, which makes sense in context. I want to tell the listener, because immediately the barmaid he talks to falls in love with him.
When he's asking her what the young woman over there is drinking, and she says, "Oh, was it the lime and tonic with a bad ID?"
Yes.
Yes.
So he knows there's no alcohol in there, even though she's about to act like there is. Because I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. It seems
because she has to be a wayward teen so that Seagal can be a good guy or whatever.
But then we get the big moment where Seagal tries to act.
Yeah.
Do you want to take us through that one, Kyle?
Well, he says he doesn't drink and whatnot. I don't remember what he actually says, but they have a back and forth where she's drinking and she thinks she's drinking. And he walks away to the bar, and she gives in and comes over and says, well, Uncle, I don't want to fight. We're going to all get along. She totally switches her demeanor with no reason or rhyme.
Apparently she was so moved by the speech he gave about like wanting to make up with his brother. You know, that he always thought he would have a chance to do it, and this was Seagal trying to emote. You know, we can't skip over this.
You're right. Now I remember it was like probably some of the best dialogue. This is probably Seagal dialogue where he just said, she says, "How could you stop talking to my dad?" And he's like, "Well, I didn't know. You know, he's going to die." But his whole philosophy of life is like, "Well, it's been a long time. Things happen. I didn't know this was going to happen." Just like the lamest like philosophy ever.
Well, then he goes on to say how, well, basically your dad, how do you think he got those medals? He wasn't no angel. She says, don't talk about my dad that way. And that's when he gets up and leaves. So obviously he insulted her, and then she's the one that comes to him to apologize.
It's the power of Seagal, man. It's the power of Seagal.
But he does, he scrunches his eyebrows a little bit more than usual and tries to do like a little pouty thing. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a pretty accurate description. That's fine.
So now everything's good.
Yeah. And then everything's good. She's all good. And she's now no longer a moody teenager. She's now just a happy-go-lucky teenager. But then she bumps into Bobby, our favorite character, Bobby, in the hall, and we get more of him being a sleaze. And then she does a kind of wrist lock and throw on him, kind of like a kind of judo move on him, throws him down the hall, which really takes him aback. And then he has to get a drink after that. He's so disturbed that a girl has thrown him around that he has to get a drink after that.
Well, to give him credit, he was just doing his job at that point, and she said, "What's in the closet?" And he's like, "Oh, he's joking, saying secretive stuff."
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Said, "Well, I guess you're going to have to restrain me then, because I want to see." And he goes to touch her hand, and that's when she flips him or breaks his wrist. She doesn't actually break his wrist. But
no, he just throws him. She does a wrist lock on him and throws him. But yeah. At this point, I've written in my notes, Bobby gets thrown, stroke, classic Seagal assholedom, because at the bar just after that, he goes to the bar and he's talking about how he's just been thrown about by his niece, and then he says oh, it's lucky she was a girl because I've got some of those kind of Bruce Lee kung fu moves, and Seagal just looks at him and goes, "Yeah, so I've heard. I mean, mainly from you. But so I've heard."
Which then leads to my favorite line. It's not, but my favorite line from when I first started watching it is that he goes, "Don't give him the brandy. I'm going to use it to make the cake."
Yes.
And they just start making a cake that never pops up again.
Yes. Well, I think they forget about it, but he's making that cake because it's her favorite, his niece's favorite, and he's. Yeah, all of a sudden he's in the kitchen and everyone just loves him, and somehow they know who he is, and he's just running the place.
Oh yeah, I mean, his cooking skills are so off the charts, man. The other chefs are all kind of gathering around, being like, "Holy shit, how is he even doing this?
How is he?" I mean,
he's got
so amazing.
He's got the mixing bowl, he's got all that cake mix, and what? I've never seen anything. What, brandy cake? What? Oh man. Never seen anything like it.
It's another Seagal fitting into some weird little culture there in a weird way. And then he puts the cake. He's gonna bake it in the microwave for 15 minutes. Which I was like, what? Okay.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like, well, I don't know, like, it obviously has that Ray-Ban magic. Although, I have to say that he must care less about his niece than he cared about the captain, because the cake is never mentioned again, whereas the pies that got burnt in the first Under Siege, he was very upset about.
This is true.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think I've seen enough of the Great British Bake Off, or the British cooking show.
Don't go here.
I know that they can use them.
We've gone too far afield if we're talking about the Great British.
Yeah. Let's reel it back to more serious claims. Like Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. One of the great things is like something. They say it a bunch. Like this is the first time they say it, where one of the chefs goes, "Oh, we must be in dark territory."
Yeah, and it doesn't make any sense for him to say it, because like it's right. We'll explain it, but he says like, "Oh, I think what was that? Torpedoes? We must be in dark territory." Like I have to say the title here.
It seems like the first time you would say it would be when you explain it, like, "Oh, dark territory." Yeah. This could be the exposition dump, but instead they say it a bunch more, and it isn't until basically the end of the movie that they're like, this is what dark territory actually is.
Yes, because it is proper railroad terminology of like a place that you couldn't reach by signal or anything like that. So it's dangerous in terms of like two trains like crashing into each other because like they can't communicate. But obviously now it's not so much of a thing because obviously the advances in GPS and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So it is a real thing. It's not just a funky title. It is a real thing. But yes, like you say, it's kind of used randomly,
just like the oil rig in last episode, where it's like they're using these terms, but then it seems like the people don't necessarily. They kind of know what they are. This one works a little bit better, but like they're just throwing out railway terms because they heard it somewhere, not because they did the research.
That's true.
It feels like they're just trying to work in jargon because that's what other movies do.
Yeah, for sure. But now we get into action as the terrorists take over the train. The train is like kind of flanked down by Scotty, one of the few mercenaries that actually gets a name, played by Jonathan Banks, and whoever he's standing with. They flag down the train, and then the mercenaries get on board, and they just start killing everybody. Yeah. Which seems kind of unnecessary, like just in terms of like, I understood why they started like killing folk in the first Under Siege when they're on a naval vessel, but it's just a civilian train, and like they seem particularly concerned to kill the cooks, as if as if they maybe suspected Ryback was on. They're like, those chefs, man, they're fucking dangerous. We got to kill those chefs.
That he even tells them to get down, and they don't. They just stand there and basically take the bullets.
But it also leads to a great scene where one of the chefs does attack one of the terrorists with a cleaver and gets shot and killed, and then he said that the terrorist says, "Anybody else want to be a hero?" And immediately Seagal comes out and just fucks him up and throws him off the train.
Which, he could have did it before the guy was killed. He let the guy die.
This is weirdly, this it's not actually a Seagal trope, but weirdly, this is not the first time this has happened. In the very first episode we did way back at Hard to Kill, there was a shopkeeper that definitely Seagal could have saved.
Yes. Yeah, that's a weird, like, Seagal is like, I'm a pacifist, but I let people die if I want to.
Depending on my mood.
If they just shot the train and didn't kill anybody, he would have been fine in that kitchen. But now that he killed people, now we fight.
Yeah. Oh, also, in this sequence, right, when they're all like killing people and they're taking hostages and stuff, there is a random shot where one of the mercenaries bursts into a carriage and just shoots the radio.
Yes.
And I was like, what the fuck?
It's the one with the captains or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're having sex. So
maybe he doesn't realize that it's not like a radio you can communicate through or something.
yeah.
Oh, that I never thought of that. I was literally I put in my notes. Really didn't like that song. That was
yes.
Yeah, because somebody could use a radio to just a regular FM radio to signal or to contact the army.
Yeah, these mercenaries don't know.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. These mercenaries are kind of idiots.
Yeah.
And then kind of following a theme, there is like a transmission on the train from our main villain, who is dun 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 Travis Dane, back from the dead.
I thought he committed suicide.
God, no. And yeah, he has like a transmission to all the hostages, and he says specifically, no hero shit. So there we go. And then we cut to end credits, and Travis Dane wins. No.
Well, there is this weird exchange where he comes across the two captains naked, and he reveals himself and all that. And then Penn, his second in command, the enforcer, is kind of just watching them weirdly, like he has a connection to him, but then he doesn't at all.
No, he's just being a perv.
Yeah. That's basically it. But he reveals that he's alive and everything he's gonna do. It's a big old exposition dump, kinda. But
although I do very much like the moment where where Captain Chilling, like, he makes a comment about they're like, it sounds like they were having an affair. It's like colleagues aren't supposed to date. That's like ATAC rules. And Captain Chilling rather stupidly goes, "That's what this is all about." And then Travis Dane's like, "Yeah, that's what it's all. I like faked my own death to fuck up your relationship."
Yeah, I can't tell. So I wrote about Dane. So throughout, like, there's these moments where like he's a pretty good villain. Or, he kind of has these weird quirks about him, but then he does a lot of horrible stuff. But then some of the deliveries too, like, oh, never mind. So I couldn't pinpoint him the same way I could, McGill/Penn.
I mean, I think Bogosian is hamming it up.
Yeah,
it's great.
I think he is hamming it up, and I think it's great. And he hams it up in a very different way to the Tommy Lee Jones as Stranix, which was more like, it was over the top, but like in a very manic way. Whereas like this just seems like, just the guy's just like cracked. He's just like, kind of that kind of twitchy, unhinged way. Like, it's a very sweaty performance. Like, I would just keep looking at him and being like, was it very hot on set? Because he's like profusely sweating all the time. But also, again, in terms of casting, it's a pretty good capture. Eric Bogosian, who at the time was pretty much an acclaimed playwright, and then did a bit of acting. Like, he did like a lot of one-man plays and stuff, and was probably at the time most famous for the Oliver Stone movie Talk Radio, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a very different role for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows what he's getting into here.
Oh, yeah, for sure he does. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, apparently he had, like, unlike Jeff Murphy, who had no fun on the film, apparently Eric Bogosian had fun on the film. He knew what type of film he was in, and that he was happy to do it. He's actually, I saw a quote from him in the research that I did, and he said, "I wanted to play, after I saw Die Hard and I saw Alan Rickman in Die Hard, I really wanted to play a big old fat villain in a big action movie, and I was very happy to be able to do that in Under Siege 2.
Yes.
I mean, it makes sense. I think, yeah, it kind of goes with, again, going back to like horror movies or stuff like that, there's people that know what movie they're in and just have fun with it. It works a lot better than, having these really great actors that are then just kind of trying to treat it seriously, and then it doesn't work out in their favor as much.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or they just like really, you can tell. I think like my least favorite one is like when it's these great actors and the material is obviously beneath them, but they act that way, so everything looks kind of begrudging and just like they don't want to be there.
Yeah.
That's when kind of the paycheck comes, or when they're just phoning it in, that type of thing.
And then we get like a relatively nasty interrogation sequence with kind of the Captain Trilling and Captain Gilder are both threatened with a kind of this hot poker thing to the act. Captain Trilling rather overconfidently states that he will never give up the codes that they need to like hack into the satellite, and he gives them up very, very quickly as soon as it's this hot poker is threatened to Captain Gilder first, and then to himself.
Which then he talks about. Then he kind of keeps backtracking, say, "Well, it doesn't even matter because the codes change constantly, and the codes won't even be the same as they were, as the ones we just had were, but then they work anyways." I don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
but we do get the intro of the female mercenary, more importantly, who's wielding this hot poker and who just seems like a total badass.
Yeah. She does seem like a total badass, and seems like she will be a much bigger character than she actually is.
Yeah.
At this point in time, in case you're wondering where Casey Ryback is, he's like sneaking about on top of the train. He does that a lot throughout this movie. Casey Ryback is just walking on top of the train quite a lot throughout the film.
That's why. So one of my notes later on is actually that for the first about 50 minutes, he's not. I mean, you see him kind of sneak around and stuff like that, but he's not in it a whole lot. Get more focuses on, I think, them setting up the plot that's about setting everything up.
Yeah, I think. I think this is very much why this film and The First Under Siege are the favorite Seagal films of like non-Seagal fans. Partly because they are some of the best films, but also partly because like we spend way more time with the villains than we do Seagal. Under Siege is exactly the same. Yeah. We spend way more time with Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey and also the kind of military control center, because it's set up in the same way, like this kind of 3-part narrative all kind of going on simultaneously. So I think that's why. So you get kind of less of the Seagal weirdness and stuff like that.
And we get so much explanation on what this nonsensical technology is and can do and what they're going to do with it. You're just like, this is all ridiculous.
So it's originally like a big satellite where you could see everything, then it becomes it can create earthquakes in a way, then it's kind of like just a very honed in laser.
Bogosian that guy, as Kurtwood Smith says, he puts his mind to it. He can do anything, Craig.
Yeah, that is true. That's true. We should mention that at this point as well that Captain Trilling and Captain Gilder are both no more, because they are thrown off the train. Captain Trilling is thrown off the train and then machine gunned by mercenary number 1, Peter Green. But he does not, apparently, the different rules for women. So Captain Gilder just gets thrown off the train. And then she falls into some water, and you kind of think, like, has she survived? Will that come back up? No, she's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the same way as last episode, maybe this will become a recurring thing. I was hoping to see a movie where their love story unfolded a little bit more. Then.
Oh God! I was really hoping to see.
You're just doing all sorts of like. Like, are you going to start a film career, Craig, where you just do like alternative cuts of like Seagal movies of side characters?
He should.
Yeah, I'll just be as side characters of a Seagal movie and make a movie of their own about it.
We also need a Seagal cooking show.
There we go.
Oh yeah, for sure. I do feel that we should mention in the kind of big exposition dump that we get, like. Just because it's so weird, I do want to mention Bogosian's very strange bondage speech, where he's talking about the CD-ROM, and you just never know what's going to be on a CD-ROM. Could be codes, could be like just S&M bondage porn, like, because he says S&M bondage, like,
Yes.
anyway. Oh, but it turns out no, he brought codes today. It's just like, I don't. Yep, that is dialogue that somebody wrote. We don't know who. Could be Reeves, could be Haddam, could be Brian Egeland's rewrite, could be a Seagal number. Who knows? Lots of people put input into this script.
But it does pop up occasionally, because once we get with Penn and all of them, there are some more kind of S&M type dialogue moments. So
that is
somebody
true.
had that on the brain when they were writing this movie. At least that villains are into S&M.
I mean, that's how mercenaries unwind.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know how we get the later scene where they explain how Travis Dane and Penn first met in ATAC? I feel like maybe they bonded over their joint love of S&M.
They bonded over bondage.
There we go. So, going on, moving to the next
moving on from that, you can move us on from that, Craig.
Yeah. So part of the logic of this too is that even though he sets up all these ghost satellites and everything, that he can control it, but they'll never get a good pinpoint because he's on the train of where he's controlling it from. And so is that when we get into his test run of or was there something before?
Well, we should explain really quickly the ghost satellites are like Bogosian puts a bunch of fake satellites on their radar, so to speak, so that they cannot pinpoint which one is the real satellite.
Yeah. I think this is where he takes out the building in China that is apparently going to kill thousands. In fact, no, I think slightly before that, Seagal comes back onto the train and we get the return of Bobby. Yay!
Who has evaded capture by hiding.
He has evaded capture by hiding. And then asks Casey Ryback what he's been doing, which Ryback sarcastically replies, "Nice day for a stroll." And so we get some back and forth from them where like Ryback basically bosses Bobby about and very amusingly says, don't make me raise my voice. I really wanted like this to continue, that Bobby's just get more and more annoying, and we actually get Seagal shouting above his normal whisper. I don't know like what Seagal shouting would actually be. If it's just like like just like a kind of more forced whisper. I mean, who knows? We'll never know. But there we go.
Has there been a movie with Seagal shouting?
I don't know. Like I've not seen one where he's like properly shouting. No, he always has that whispery voice.
Oh, okay.
He can't really run either.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's running fucking hilarious. You've not had one of the ones where he runs. Anyway, you can tell us about Travis Dane's attack on China, Craig.
Oh, okay. So it's supposed to be a fertilizer plant, but that is a cover for a nuclear plant for nuclear weapons. And they know it, and the Chinese know that they know it, but they pretend they don't know it, and the Chinese know that they are pretending to not know that they know it, but secretly know it. That's how he explains it. This is all part of the dialogue.
that is remembered perfectly there, Craig. Remembered perfectly. That's his exact line that Eric Bogosian says.
Yeah. So this is going to be the test of this equipment that we don't necessarily know what it's for, but apparently if he destroys this area, he talks about it'll kill hundreds instantly, and then the gases will kill thousands. And finally, he sets it up, and everybody in the command center going back to Washington are saying, wait, this is online, and they think it's just a glitch. Mm-hmm. And he does it. He destroys the building, which apparently will kill thousands of people in China, in mainland China. But it is never.
To be fair, this is actually quite a well shot scene. Like I like the way they kind of cut back and forth from the panic in the ATAC control center to him kind of his Dane's mad ramblings and cut kind of back and forth, and then we get the explosion shot. I think it's all done quite well.
Yeah. No, it does work really well. And then they think, or they're able to kind of deny and say that was just an earthquake because the way the laser shoots the stuff, it just makes it look like an earthquake.
Exactly. And the fun fact that we've got about the explosion as well is that was unused stock footage from On Deadly Ground from the explosion at the oil factory, which is just a fun bit of recycling done by Seagal there. But anyway, we move on and we get the reintroduction of more characters from Under Siege because Admiral Bates and Captain Garza, our good old friends, are back once again. And they're brought up to speed on the situation, which Admiral Bates says, "Here we go again," which is quite fun. This whole scene is quite fun, where Admiral Bates is kind of brought up to speed, and he asks the perfectly legitimate question to CIA agent Tom Baker: "Why do you keep hiring these maniacs?" And what does CIA agent Tom Baker reply, Kyle?
Sane people won't make these kinds of weapons. Something like that.
Yep. So that sorts that one out. Yep.
And this was supposed to be kind of a discontinued idea too, or that they rehashed the whole program or something.
That's correct. And I mean, Tom Baker pulled the exact same sort of shit. These kind of off-book moves in the first Under Siege, but apparently he knows about secrets about other people in the CIA and manages to keep his job. We don't know. He is blackmailing everybody. The president, maybe even. I don't know. Because the fact that he is still employed is miraculous.
It's like the mayor of Jaws. He's in Jaws 2 as the mayor. We should. There is a kind of horror connection as well, because Breaker's played by Nick Mancuso, who we mentioned in the last episode that we did on Under Siege, that he was the voice on the end of the phone in Black Christmas. Oh wow! I didn't know that.
And you would never know it.
No, you would never know that, But yeah, we mentioned as a fun fact, so good that we've mentioned it in both Under Siege episodes.
So is this when he starts taking?
This is when he starts taking offer because everything in this movie, it's kind of the same as the first Under Siege. So it's kind of portrayed that the terrorists have some sort of credo or ideology or something like that. But then it's immediately revealed, they're just after a big payday.
And is it $100 billion or just $1 billion?
It's just $1 billion.
And then $100 million he takes from that random broker who asks him to kill his wife.
Kill his wife by
ex-wife.
but kill his wife by just taking down an entire plane that she happens to be on.
Yes. And then he says, because he's asking for all the money, he says he has bills to pay, or he owes people money. That's his comment about it.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're German terrorists too, I guess, because he's speaking German. So I'm assuming that the $1 billion he's getting paid for to go after Washington is from German terrorists to connect itself more to Die Hard.
Yes, just in case we weren't aware, this was a Die Hard ripoff. But yeah. And then I think this is where Dane gives his speech to ATAC, where he pretends he's in Paris.
Yeah, with a bad green screen,
with a green screen of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah,
all I could think when I was watching that scene was which of the mercenaries had to carry that? Because obviously there's a big picture of the Eiffel Tower. And which of the mercenaries had to lug that about? As
yes,
because it's quite an elaborate setup.
I wanted to see the scene where he's telling Everett McGill, we need a videographer too, though.
Okay, so make sure we have the machine guns, make sure we have all the equipment. Oh, and can you bring maybe a giant picture of
a big blown up picture of the Eiffel Tower, and just can you bring that as well? Sure. Yeah, I would like the scene where they're all like setting it up. So he's like, and Travis is like, kind of like, can you see it? Is it like, is this, I'm not like standing in front of the Eiffel Tower or anything, like, so getting a bit of direction and stuff like that. Is it does it look squint to you? Can we straighten it up? Like that would have been great.
There's your guys' next movie that you want to make, or Kyle, is just about the henchman that has to do random stuff for a crazy maniac.
There was actually a very similar scene, like in an episode that me and Kyle did on Marked for Death, where like there's gangsters enter this I think it's Seagal's sister in that movie, and like they in her house they've like set up all these candles and stuff like that for like this voodoo ritual they're going to carry out. It's even more elaborate. It's amazing. Like a short film on the setup of that would be great.
all these terrorists that put so much care into what they do.
This has become the episode where we mention all the other episodes. It's become like a kind of compilation episode plus talking about Under Siege 2. Anyway, let's get back to the plot. What's happening with the plot, Craig?
So they just finished. So he just blew up the plane, which they thought in Washington they thought it was just a glitch, but apparently he does his whole spiel. He blows up the plane. He wants money from them, and then it turns out that one of the people going down is this when they find out one of their guys are missing.
Oh yeah, they send a
because
we do get like again, like in the ATAC center, like the creepy guy who zoomed on and zoomed into the tits. He makes like a completely useless comment about that's why they call it space, because there's lots of space. He is completely useless throughout the movie. He will be completely useless again later. And then there's a brief scene where we cut back to Sarah with the other hostages, and she talks about her Uncle Casey's secret medals. He's got medals that are so secret he can't even show people, which is, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those lines that is like, somebody wrote that and was like, that sounds cool. Does it make any sense?
Well, yeah, and it's more waxing Seagal's car, even when he's not there. We're like, no, but Steven Seagal's really great. We have to talk about him.
But then why would he even get the medals in the first place if they're so secretive? Why wouldn't they just...
Because Craig, he's such a badass. He's Casey Ryback.
Absolutely.
Surprisingly, we don't get as much dossier stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's a sequel, I guess, and everyone's just like, fucking Casey Ryback.
Casey Ryback. Casey fucking Ryback.
He was my instructor at Fort Bragg. He's the best.
We'll get that in a minute.
We're
get Casey fucking Ryback in a minute. But anyway, before that, where like Ryback's back, he's back on top of the train again. He does, as I said, does that a lot. And this is when they realize some henchmen are missing, and like Penn sets his henchmen onto Ryback.
Yeah, and he sends. There's the one guy. It was actually, I wrote down. It was an awesome train death. Oh no. So that's a later one. Never mind. I know what one I'm talking about there.
Okay.
But he sends the guy down to check out what the issue was, and it turns out that he was able to send a message through the phone. Isn't that
like a fax? It seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sends a fax through his Apple Newton.
Yeah.
Yes.
Modern day technology of 1995.
Then Seagal kills him, or Casey kills him, and then that's when they start to wonder where this other henchman is at, who had a white eye, or
Yeah. Another character who looks all badass and he gets killed so easily.
Yeah, for sure. So that happens, and then Ryback's on top of the train again. I kind of jumped ahead of myself.
No, but he's taking out all the guys. I like when that's what the train death was for. There's the guy who's going to look up top because he could be on top of the train.
Who seems like like of those henchmen that are sitting there, Scotty is driving the train, our old friend Jonathan Bax. He's driving the train, and then there's like 3 other mercenaries who are in that carriage with him. And then it seems like the oldest one goes on, like, because this guy is like 55. And like the other 2 guys sitting beside him look considerably younger, but he's like, oh well, I suppose I'll do this shit. Fine.
And he's not even. The other 2 guys are fit too. He's like the other, the one that goes up is average build. He's
average build, middle aged, but he goes first.
There's another side character for a movie right there. Yeah. the one last job mercenary that gets brutally murdered.
So he gets beaten, thrown in front of the train, which he's not just run over by the train. He holds on for a little bit and it's just being crushed. That is my awesome train death in all caps that I have note.
Excellent.
And you just feel kind of bad for him.
Yeah. And then we get into the most ridiculous, no one's looking where they're shooting gunfight. Just sticking their machine guns out of the window at the top of the train, and Seagal doing the opposite and killing them.
But somebody knows where they're shooting.
Yep.
And that person is the female mercenary, or Fatima, as she might be called. I don't know where Wikipedia is getting their information from. They know the secret cast list. But
because she is an amazing sniper. Again, won't pop up anywhere after this moment.
Nope.
And she shoots him, which they think he went down, but they don't know it's Casey yet.
No, they don't. They don't. So he gets shot, and it looks like they got him. She shoots him in the shoulder. He falls off the train, and then at that point they kind of radio in, he's been shot. That's good. They've got him. But then, so this is when Penn does a bit of research himself and finds Casey's Apple Newton, and it looks like Casey's writing his memoirs, Ryback's Tactics.
Oh God!
And that's when they check the who bought train tickets, and they find out that his name is on it. So they know now who they're dealing with.
And this scene is amazing. Yeah. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where they see this, they see Ryback's Tactics, and mercenary number 2, Patrick Kirkpatrick, and mercenary number 1, Peter Green, are just like, I think it's mercenary number 2 who's the first one to say, Casey fucking Ryback? And then Peter Green's character, mercenary number 1, it's revealed he was trained by Casey Ryback, and then at this point Travis Dane is very confused and he's like, who the fuck is this Casey Ryback? And then Penn explains that he's an ex-Navy SEAL captain and all-round badass, and we get more exposition. And
he's the best of the best.
He is the best of the best.
You were the best of the best.
And then we get the best line in the movie, where Peter Green is being told off by Penn for, like, have they killed him? Do they know they've killed him? Did they see the body? Now, obviously, as we learned on Deadly Ground, and we learned with Travis Dane himself, obviously, if you don't see the body, it means they're not dead. And Penn then tells him off by saying, assumptions is the mother of all fuck up. It's a great scene. Casey fucking Ryback.
And that's where my series of notes start to become Everett McGill deserved more roles, and Everett McGill deserves better.
Just his delivery of that line alone should have got more roles.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is kind of where it all starts going down, basically, of, I guess, the diehard elements more popping in of now now Casey Ryback is out for blood.
Yeah,
fighting
that's
is
true.
Going to begin.
And in typical kind of, because, does this have any logic? no, the logic is just Seagal's a badass. There's a scene where we get our favorite character, Bobby, again, where he says to Ryback, "You've been shot," and he says, "This ain't been shot." And his wound is never mentioned. The hole in his shoulder never mentioned, nor troubles him again.
And it's not just like it was a regular, well, any bullet would have been awful, but that was a high-powered rifle, like sniper rifle, that shot him in the shoulder too. And it doesn't bother him. That's how awesome.
That's true. And then we get like Ryback's kind of like tooling up, and he starts making a bomb behind the bar that seems to consist of ice cream, brandy, and broken glass.
I know, it's coconut
and lighter,
oil.
Coconut oil.
Yeah,
and lighter fluid for the detonation.
Yeah. I don't know what the ice cream. Like,
it's just more Seagal bravado. He's like, I can just give me anything and I'll make it a bomb. Shoot me and I won't be shot.
You think MacGyver is good? Well, check this shit out. I'm making a cocktail and a bomb at the same time.
And a pager, which the pager says,
"You're fucked."
You're fucked.
Yeah.
Well, like before we get the bomb going off, there is a scene in between where Penn goes to search for Ryback's +1, who he seems to immediately know just from the look in Sarah's eyes is Sarah.
Yeah, and we get more weird underage girl sexual attraction going on here.
Oh, that's true, where she tries to spray the pepper spray in his face, and then it turns out he's immune to pepper spray because that's part of mercenary training. You just spray, you get pepper sprayed in your face a lot till it gets to the point that you're immune to it and can just use it as like kind of breath spray.
Because he said that none of them were affected by it, but clearly mercenary number 1, when she first sprays, like he looks like he's affected by it, and then he's not immediate. So I don't know.
Like 2 seconds later, he's not bothered by it at all. Like he's just acting hard in front of Penn.
Yeah.
I think we're just reminding ourselves that Everett McGill's the ultimate badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But then we get the scene with the bomb, and yes, the pager. He's again like he just typed it. He went to the effort to type into the pager. You're fucked as the bomb detonates. That's very. He obviously has a sense of humor. Does Ryback?
Yeah. But the bomb isn't is almost more of a brutal bomb because it just catches the people on fire. So they die slow, painful deaths instead of
just running around on fire, burning.
Which lasts kind of a long time until Penn has to put them out of their misery.
And then at this point, miraculously, Bobby does something useful. He steals the CD-ROM with the codes that Dane has been using to fire the satellite. And then we head off the train. We're off train. Both Bobby and Ryback are off the train, and the henchmen. The train has to be stopped, and the henchmen go chasing after them. Oh, you want to tell us, Craig, how that scene goes down?
Yeah. So on one side of it, Ryback is rolling down the cliff and fighting. Well, he ends up falling off a cliff, but is holding on, fighting several people. And then Bobby is being chased by one of the henchmen. And they don't know. They know one of them, either Bobby or Ryback, has the CD, but they don't know which one. So not to kill them. They send men down with ropes to get Ryback, which he jumps onto one of the guys and is able to kill him by smashing him into the rocks. And then he shoots the other guy. And then on the other side of it, Bobby, who didn't know how to fire a gun previously,
but was shown by Ryback, much like Ryback's other sidekick, Jordan Tate, was shown by him in the first film. He's just an all-round great teacher, guru, badass.
Yeah. So he now realizes that his shirt's been ripped that would have had the CD in it. but he doesn't have anything. The only thing he has is, does he say your ass?
Your ass is what he said.
And then he shoots the mercenary with a pretty good shot, just one bullet.
Yeah. And his shooting is improved in mere minutes because, like, not long before that, he was like firing machine gun just willy nilly.
Yeah,
not looking, spraying bullets, not hitting anybody.
But now he's great. He's a full professional. But they're able to find the actual CD that is just on the ground on the train tracks on these rocks, still intact, unscratched, perfectly fine.
That is true. At this point, I've written in my notes, Penn is one cold dude because, like, so there is a rope hanging off from the train that has got one of his henchmen on it. He does not know that Ryback is on this rope, and he just shoots the rope off. Presumably, in his mind, he must just be like, yeah, well, that guy is completely unnecessary. We can get rid of him. We need to be moving on with this train.
Yeah, because you never hear that many gunshots or anything, so it doesn't make sense why he would cut him. He doesn't even know that Ryback is on one of the ropes either.
Yep. And then, more kind of logic-defying stuff. We get another scene at ATAC, Kyle, don't we?
Yes, we do. And I don't even know what we do there.
Much earlier in a scene we didn't mention because, like, why would we? The fax comes from the Apple Newton, comes through to the Mile High Cafe, which is the restaurant that Ryback owns, and his chef that we had seen earlier on receives it and then calls up ATAC, the super secret government facility that nobody knows about. And then Admiral Bates, for some reason, takes his call.
Yes, and then we find out, of course, that we are in Under Siege 2, and Casey Ryback is here to save another terrorist debacle. But they also prep their, like, jets to destroy the train just in case, right?
That's right, because, like, you know, they're going to have to blow up the train, even though it's got a couple of hundred people on it, unless, as Admiral Bates says, Casey Ryback can pull off some sort of miracle in the next 18 minutes.
Which before, too, we kind of, I know, skipped over this or mentioned it lightly, is that they destroy what they think is the satellite, the Grazer one.
Yes.
And it isn't. Right. And that's why there are, what is it, like 80-some ghost satellites.
50.
Or 50,
it's ghost satellites that Travis Dane has set up to confuse them so they don't know which one is the real Grazer one.
And is this where the useless pervert official says, well, why don't we choose one? Or he chooses one that they're going to fire their last missile at. Kappa.
Bates tells them to pick one at random.
Bates does tell them to pick one at random. Even though Bates had told them to shut up earlier because he had made that comment about that's why they call it space, because there's so much space.
Yeah. So he picks one of them that isn't even the right one.
Yeah.
Surprise. Yeah.
So now they wasted all of their missiles. So it has to be either the train explode, or they destroy the train, or Casey Ryback performs the miracle.
That's right. Can you guess what happens, listener? I mean, I think you might be able to, but we will explain what happens anyway. So at this point, we get like, at this point, I've written in my notes, more creepiness with Sarah. You want to take that one, Kyle?
Yes, we get Everett McGill creeping on her. So he's already taken her hostage, and now he's got her like in their little train car, right? With Bogosian.
Yes.
Yeah. And he, is this the...
It's a bit where she does the face pinch thing.
Yeah, she grabs his face by putting her thumb like in his sort of cheek and grabbing his chin in this weird grip that I guess we're supposed to believe is a super secret move. And he
classic Ryback tactics.
Yes. And McGill just takes it for a minute and then kind of like pulls her hand away and is like, that was good. Like, you would have been good, like a good mercenary. And that's where it gets really, we see the S&M bondage subtext going on here.
That if she was trained a little bit longer by Ryback, she would be amazing, but she's just not fully there yet.
And it's too bad that she's Ryback's niece or whatever, and he's got to use her as bait. And then Seagal is he's climbing back up from the cliff, right?
Yes.
And he
steals a car.
Yeah, somehow he finds a truck.
Hot wires a shitty old truck to catch up with the train.
This scene's great.
Well, not only that, so we'll go through that quickly. He gets that truck, catches up with the train, finds an overpass, like a dirt road that goes over this train tunnel and is above the train, flies over the train with the truck, jumps out of the truck in midair. The truck crashes to the ground and like explodes or whatever, and Seagal lands flawlessly on top of the train pretty much mid-run and just runs along the top of the train, and we're back in action.
It's beautiful. It's classic Ryback tactics once again.
Yeah, that's going in the memoir.
Which I thought, why wouldn't you just, maybe too much, but have the train crash into the truck? Wouldn't that help stop it or do something instead of just having the truck fly over the train? And I don't know.
I mean, I guess, yeah, I could have tried to derail it, but then he could have killed a bunch of people accidentally, right? Yeah. And he cares about people sometimes.
Yeah. Occasionally. We also get a good callback to the best line in the movie again, where this time Penn has assumed that Ryback is dead, but again has made the classic error of not seeing the body. And at this point, Travis Dane says, "Assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups."
Yes, it might be the best callback in this movie.
Yeah, I think it is the best callback in the movie.
So he pops up with Bobby again, and this is where he kind of gives Bobby the speech about being a hero, or Bobby says he wants to be a hero or something, I want to say. Or maybe that was earlier on, where it's like you have the chance to be a hero, or
yeah, I think that was earlier on. So in this scene, we get like a somewhat odd scene between mercenary number. I like, it's just genuinely, folks. Peter Green's character is just called mercenary number one.
Yeah.
So like, but anyway, we get a weird scene with him and Bobby, and he starts talking about cockroaches.
Yeah.
How Bobby's a cockroach, and goes on this kind of long-winded analogy, and then. Bobby kind of looks up to his right and says, "Want to help me out there?" And who's there? Oh, it's Casey fucking Ryback.
And he snaps his neck.
And that's the end of Peter Green. You really think he's going to get better than that, but nope. Disappointing death strike again.
My issue actually was that, so Peter Green's talking to Bobby. Well, mercenary number one is talking to Bobby, and he's talking like they've had this kind of battle or whatever throughout between them. Like he keeps beating up, but they've never really interacted up until that point. I feel like,
No, and Bobby killed like basically one guy.
Yeah.
But he's making it sound like, man, you're pretty good. Like, I got to give it to you.
Yeah.
It does, like the way they interact, it feels like they've had this cat and mouse game like throughout the movie, which has really not happened. It's just happened in Peter Green's head.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in a different movie.
Where Bobby is a much more useful character.
Yeah. So I know this is when they're kind of doing their siege again upon the bad guys. And there's the woman just doing her makeup in the bathroom, which I wrote down. And it goes for a lot of them, that these people are actually very calm for being in a hostage situation.
Oh, yeah, she's just kind of calmly applying her lipstick and, just doing her thing.
This was my favorite little scene. So she's been escorted, I guess. There's a terrorist outside, right?
Yeah, outside the door.
This is our assumption, is she's been escorted to go to the bathroom.
Yes, because he's like banging on the door, being like, "Hurry up, lady! You said you'd just be a second."
Yeah, and Ryback and our favorite porter come through a vent into the bathroom, surprising her. They use her to distract the terrorist, shoving her out of the bathroom, and she's holding her bra saying, "My bra is broke." And so the terrorist is distracted by her boobs momentarily so Steven Seagal can come out and kill him, and then give the best one-liner of this movie is "tits to die for." And you're just like, wow. Thank you, Steven Seagal. Oh, what an uncle.
Yep. What a guy. That was I don't know if that'll make it into Ryback's tactics, to be fair. But,
probably for the better if it doesn't.
This is kind of where, after he dispatches some more, we get into another one of my big notes in all caps. Everett McGill deserves better. And this is him saying that, I think I'm right, that there's nobody that scares him.
Yes.
And your uncle, he scares me, and I like it.
Yeah, that's right. I also, like, in my notes, I've put Penn as a bad dude because once again, so like one of the mercenary number 2,
yes.
basically says, this you fucked up here. You've it's all gone wrong. We should cut our losses now. And Everett McGill just shoots him in the head, and that's the end of that guy.
No, he stabs him in the throat.
Yeah. Oh no, that's right. No, sorry, no, he doesn't.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, that's right. Like, so and he stabs him with his own knife in the throat. Which sets up the knife fight that happens just in a minute. That's right. And at this point as well, Travis Stain takes out a couple of stealth planes that were coming after the train that they were going to use the ATAC were going to use to blow up the train, because he thinks he can't track them in time, but then because Travis Stain is always the smartest man in the room, he works out he can track the turbulence, and because the plot says so.
Yeah. Well, with Penn too, I like the interaction that he wants to fight Ryback in hand-to-hand combat, and he's like, and I'm going to do this by myself, and he wants to have this moment, and Dane is just kind of like, okay, go have your little moment. I'm just gonna stay here. It's like, what? He has this like, go die, and I'm going to keep doing my thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so like these kind of, so at this point, they've kind of cleared out the train. Like, basically, most of the mercenaries are dead now. They've gone through the chain. Ryback has killed most of them. It looks like we assume, we don't actually really see it, but like, it's kind of referenced at the end of the movie that at this point they must evacuate the train.
Oh, because they're on the wrong side of the tracks now.
Yeah.
We never see that. I remember there's a moment where they're freed and all the passengers, hostages are excited. And then, as I was watching, we get later to the train crashing, and I was like, oh, all those people are going to die. But they're not there, and we don't know how that happened.
Yeah, we don't know how that happened. But like, so basically right at the end, Ryback on the phone with ATAC and stuff is like, all the hostages are safe. Yeah. And again, like you, I was like, are they? Okay, cool. Yeah, because I was like, I suppose the train did seem very empty towards the end, so I'm assuming that, like, when we saw that little scene where the train are kind of partying because, like, one guy says, like, we're free now, and they must have, like, evacuated themselves at that point. So the train has been evacuated. Hooray, the hostages are saved.
And it's heading straight towards
another
train
gas, or train, just basically carrying
it's carrying 800,000 tons of gas.
Yes.
Which, because it's mentioned a bunch of times, like, again, Bobby being the useless fucker he is, he mentions this, but then it's actually on the piece of paper that Ryback's looking at. So I don't know if he's just reading it off the piece of paper. He mentions it in that kind of confident way of somebody who just knows that fact, but it is actually written on the bit of paper in front of Ryback, so he could just be reading it off the bit of paper.
And this is kind of where they actually explain what Dark Territory is, because they are in it again.
Yes, and as we explained earlier on in the episode, it's where they can, can't reach a signal or anything until, but it's not really such a thing anymore because of improved GPS and stuff.
Yeah.
And this is where Bobby gets his big moment. Kyle, do you want to go through Bobby's big moment?
Yes. So we have a helicopter flying above the train now. So this is how what left of the mercenaries are going to escape with Bogosian, supposedly. But Bobby sneaks on first, and they realize that he's not supposed to be there because Everett McGill knows nobody boarded the helicopter yet. And the helicopter pilot's saying oh, the first guy's coming. So a helicopter arrives to get the henchmen and Bogosian out of there. But Bobby gets onto the helicopter first that's flying above the train. And the mercenaries discover this. So Fatima, our favorite female mercenary, runs to the rope ladder to get him, chases him up the ladder, and they get into a tussle. And as Craig pointed out, Bobby utilizes that wrist lock that Sarah showed him on Fatima, throwing her out of the helicopter so she can hit the train on her way down to her death.
That further goes with last episode, that's what we've been doing for this one, is that he gives the female character kind of very brutal deaths.
Yeah.
Other people he's willing
true.
to avoid showing it or stuff like that, but for some reason, I guess if you're a woman and you're going to die in a Seagal movie, it's going to be shown. And it's going to be worse than others.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. The death of the kind of lawyer character in On Deadly Ground's pretty brutal. And then in Marked for Death, there's a scene right at the start of that movie where there's a prostitute who kills his partner and she gets shot to bits. And it didn't seem to be one of the rules, but maybe it is.
Yeah, it's becoming one of them.
Yeah. So then we get Ryback takes out one of the mercenaries, a kind of last remnant mercenary with some MMA moves. He kind of pounds. He does kind of some jiu-jitsu moves. He kind of chokes him out in a kind of rear naked choke, and then classic Seagal. We just get an epic close-up of his face before his big showdown with Penn in a knife fight. We also had a knife fight in Under Siege. So again, they're just doing the same things. But actually Penn might have got better off than Stanix. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, he fares pretty well. He's got good form, and it's actually kind of like an even fight for a little bit. Seagal cuts his jacket, which pisses him off. And eventually, when they lose the knife and get hand-to-hand, it gets a little bit ridiculous. But I think Everett McGill actually looks like he has a pretty good chance. He comes out looking like one of the best people facing off against Steven Seagal. But yeah, it degenerates into a fist fight where Seagal just gets a ridiculous combo in on Everett McGill, just punching him 15 times and kneeing him in the head and everything. And then McGill gets another knife, right?
Yeah, he gets a big cleaver. And to be fair, I have put in the notes, knife fight, manages to cut his face, manages to throw him off him when Ryback's on top of him, manages to throw him off him, and then there's another moment where he manages to kick him in the face, which is a lot more offense than most villains get on a Seagal character. But like you say, yes, to be fair, as a display of martial arts, I mean, Seagal's hand speed is really second to none. That's some quality stuff.
Yeah, he does have that whole moment where he's doing those weird moves. He's trying to distract him by moving his hands really fast.
Yeah, but when he's punching him in the face, and he punches him in the face about 10 times in about 3 seconds, which caves his nose in.
Yeah, sadly.
But yes, as you said, then he gets the cleaver, and but he doesn't last much long after that.
How does this is where I'm blanking on like
Seagal just like kind of immediately disarms him and then turns around, grabs him, and then just snaps his neck and then utters assumptions is the mother of all fuck ups is possibly the best line in the movie, but also after this the best Seagal line of the movie is he says, "Nobody beats me in the kitchen."
Yes.
Amazing stuff. and then we get the kind of final showdown with Travis Dane. And I knew you wanted to talk about this, Craig, the final showdown with Travis Dane.
Yeah.
Okay, so up until that point, Sarah is hung up on her neck is just being...
It's like a weird noose.
Penn's made a noose for her, and she's also holding a grenade.
Yeah, and he's going to walk away, and he's going to just exit and go onto the helicopter thinking that it's all safe. And she says that she'll throw the grenade. He says, do it, calling her bluff, and she doesn't. Which then, does Seagal throw the grenade first, or...
Yeah. Seagal takes the grenade out of her hand, rolls it down the carriage, and it blows up.
So it blows up. Dane is holding the computer, basically saying there's nothing he can do. It's all set. It's going to destroy Washington. And then Ryback shoots the computer, and apparently that is the one thing you can do.
Yes. That was the solution all along.
Yeah.
And then what we think is he falls out of the train to his death, but Dane doesn't die so easily yet. And the train is on collision course with the gas.
The other train.
Yeah, the other train. And Sarah is able to get out. She gets onto the helicopter, but then the trains collide, sending Ryback flying backwards into a very long train crash sequence.
Epically shot, though.
Yeah, very epic. Where they're falling, and it happens to be on a bridge, obviously, too. So all these trains are tumbling to the ground, hundreds or thousands of feet below, and they just keep crashing, and he keeps running through the train, somehow outrunning these trains that are falling, crashing, blowing up, whatever it may be. They're doing all three, and he's jumping through the doors as certain ones are falling and imploding, and able to do it until he jumps onto the helicopter himself.
Ryback's, as has been established from the very beginning of this podcast, from the movie Hard to Kill, Steven Seagal is hard to kill.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Travis Dane is also hard to kill because we see a shot of him which looks like he's on the train tracks. He's fallen onto the train tracks, but then suddenly he's on the ladder that is attached to the helicopter. How he got up there, really bemusing.
Yeah. And he's even on fire at one point, and he's just yelling Ryback's name.
That's right. Yes.
Somehow now he's on fire, but when a grenade went off right next to him a few minutes before, he was just kind of singed.
Absolutely. But then, he's kind of quickly dispatched. And I've put in my notes, death by CGI flames.
Yes. And all of his fingers are chopped off.
That is correct.
When Ryback slams the door on him, and he's yelling Ryback one more time.
And then that's all the bad guys defeated. And we nearly end on one last irritating line from our favorite character, our favorite porter, Bobby Zacks, when he says, "Can we go home now, Uncle Casey?" Before we then do end the movie at the graveside of Casey Ryback's brother, which I noticed on the grave, it just had the date of death, not the date of birth.
I noticed that too, yeah.
And then he's even wearing his white suit.
Yes, just like he did at the ceremonial funeral of the captain in the first movie. And then that's the end of the movie. We got to credits.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The end credit song is actually hilarious.
Oh, yeah. The end credit song, much like many other end credit songs in Steven Seagal movies, co-written by Steven Seagal. The song After the Train Has Gone, written by Steven Seagal and Tom Smallwood, performed by Greg Allman, who, as you'll remember, also performed the end tune at the end of Out for Justice that was also co-written by Seagal. So there you go. It's not as good as the end tune from Out for Justice, Don't Stand in My Way. That's an excellent blues rock number that's really, I mean, everything about that film. Oh, it's real good. So Greg Allman, Abraham McDonald, Tom Smallwood, Gene McLean, Steven Seagal himself, we all perform with backing by the Hamilton High Gospel Choir.
Wow, that's a lot for a song that didn't sound like, it sounded like something I would record in my basement and, by himself.
Well, apparently not. I mean, like, he doesn't just pull in the big names acting wise, he pulls in the big names music wise as well, like Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers Band. It's the second time he's collaborated with Seagal that we know of. So there we go. Because we're doing like a kind of compilation thing at the same time, we should also mention that Jimmy Cliff was in Marked for Death. And coming up in a couple of episodes in Fire Down Below, we have Chris Christopherson and a bunch of country music star cameos. So, like he pulls in the music stars as well.
Excited for that one.
We've got to get through Glimmerman first, but but yeah, that's it. That we've reached the end. That we've made it. We've made it through. We've made it through Under Siege 2 Dark Territory. And but that's all for this episode of the podcast. It just leaves me to say cheerio. And for my co-host Craig,
thank you for having me again, and I can't wait for the next episode.
And Kyle, likewise, thanks for having me again. And nobody beats us in the kitchen.
And listeners, if you like what you heard, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, basically, wherever you're plugging podcasts into your ear holes, check us out, give us a review. It really helps with those old algorithms. And it just leaves me to say that if you do shoot somebody, always make sure to find the body, because, if you don't find the body, then they're probably alive. And remember, assumptions as the mother of all fuck-ups.